Hook, 0 to 020. In 1641, a ship sank off the coast of England carrying more gold than the entire English treasury. 100,000 pounds of gold bullion, 400 bars of Mexican silver, 500,000 coins, worth over $1 billion today. It went down just 35 miles from shore, and after nearly 400 years of searching, nobody has found it. The voyage, 020 to 230. The Merchant Royal was built in 1627 at the Royal Naval Dockyard in Deptford, London. 700 tons, 157 feet long, armed with 32 bronze cannons. Her captain was John Limbrey, a veteran sailor who owned the ship himself for 3 years. From 1637 to 1640, Limbrey sailed the Merchant Royal through the West Indies, trading with Spanish colonies in the Caribbean. England and Spain were at peace, and English merchant ships regularly carried Spanish goods across the Atlantic. In August 1641, on the way back to London, Limbrey pulled into the port of Cadiz, Spain. And that's where the story turns. A Spanish ship in the harbor was overloaded with treasure, gold and silver from the mines of Mexico, destined for Antwerp. It was payment for 30,000 Spanish soldiers stationed in Flanders. The Spanish needed someone to carry the overflow. Limbrey took the contract. His ship was already taking on water. The hull had been leaking since the Caribbean voyages. But the money was too good to refuse. He loaded 100,000 pounds of gold, 400 bars of silver, nearly 500,000 pieces of 8, and set sail. The sinking, 2:30 to 4 o'clock. The plan was to sail up from Cadiz, possibly stop at Dartmouth for hull repairs, then continue to Antwerp to deliver the Spanish treasure. The sister ship, the Dover Merchant, sailed alongside. But the Merchant Royal never made it to Dartmouth. On September 23, 1641, about 35 miles from Land's End, the southwestern tip of England, the pumps failed. The hull had been leaking for weeks. In rough seas, with water pouring in faster than the crew could bail, the ship went down. 18 men drowned, Captain Limbrey, and roughly 40 crew members escaped in the ship's boats and were rescued by the Dover Merchant. 1 week later, King Charles I's own state papers recorded the loss. The entry called it the greatest that was ever sustained in one ship, being worth 400,000 pounds at least. The Antwerp merchants who owned most of the bullion were described as the greatest losers. That 400,000 pounds in 1641 money is worth over $1 billion today. And just 5 months after the Merchant Royal sank, England plunged into civil war. The treasure that went down with the ship could have changed the course of that war. Instead, it sat on the ocean floor, where it still sits today. Why nobody can find it? 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. The location sounds simple. 35 nautical miles from Land's End. But in 1641, navigation was done by dead reckoning. Estimated positions based on compass headings and speed guesses. The actual sinking location could be anywhere in a 200 square mile area of the English Channel. And that area is one of the most challenging search environments on Earth. 3 ocean currents collide off Cornwall. The Gulf Stream from the south, the Celtic Sea Current from the north, and the English Channel flow from the east. The result is powerful tidal forces that constantly shift the sandy seabed. The wreck could be buried under meters of sand. It could have been exposed by one storm and buried by the next. A wooden ship from 1641 may have disintegrated entirely, leaving only scattered metal objects, gold, silver, cannons, strewn across the ocean floor. And here's the real problem. Thousands of other shipwrecks litter this area. For centuries, this was one of the most dangerous shipping lanes in the world. Every sonar scan picks up dozens of targets. Most of them are not the Merchant Royal. The water is 60 to 150 meters deep, too deep for recreational divers, too shallow for the deep ocean equipment designed for 4,000-meter operations. It's a frustrating middle zone where you need expensive technology, but don't get the clean, stable conditions of the deep ocean. The Hunters, 6 o'clock to 8:30. The first serious search came in 2005 when Odyssey Marine Exploration, the American treasure hunting company, began scanning the seabed off Cornwall. In 2007, they announced a spectacular find: 17 tons of coins, worth $500 million, pulled from the Atlantic in what they called the Black Swan Project. The media immediately speculated, was this the Merchant Royal? It wasn't. The coins were dated to the mid-18th century, more than 100 years too late. The wreck turned out to be the Nuestra Señora de las Mercedes, a Spanish warship sunk in 1804. And as we covered in a previous episode, Spain sued. Odyssey fought for 5 years. They lost everything. Every coin went back to Spain. Then, in 2019, Cornish fishermen aboard the Spirited Lady hauled up a massive anchor in their nets, 20 miles south of Land's End, 300 feet down. It was dated to the 1600s. The right period. The right location. The media went wild, but treasure hunter Todd Stevens, who'd been searching the area for years, examined it and declared it Dutch in origin, and probably from a later century. The anchor remains inconclusive. The most serious current effort began in 2024. A company called Multibeam Services, based in Redruth, Cornwall, deployed 2 autonomous underwater vehicles worth £3.5 million each. Their team leader, Nigel Hodge, is a former commercial fisherman and diver with 35 years of marine exploration experience. His team of 11, mostly former Cornish fishermen who know these waters intimately, is scanning 200 square miles of seabed. A documentary crew led by Jason Fox from Channel 4's SAS, Who Dares Wins, is filming the hunt. Hodge told reporters, "We will definitely find it. As of 2026, no discovery has been announced." Who would own it? 8:30 to 9:45. Even if someone does find the Merchant Royal, keeping the treasure would be its own battle. Under UK law, all recovered wreck material must be reported to the receiver of wreck. The ship was English, the captain was English, but the cargo was Spanish, destined for Spanish soldiers in Flanders, through Antwerp merchants. Spain has precedent. They successfully reclaimed the $500 million Mercedes treasure from Odyssey Marine in 2012. They could argue the Merchant Royal's cargo was Spanish state property. The Netherlands or Belgium could also claim. The Antwerp merchants were the intended recipients, and the ship sank about 35 miles from shore, likely outside the 12 nautical mile limit of UK territorial waters. That complicates everything. If history is any guide, finding the treasure is the easy part. The legal battle over who owns it could last a decade. Still waiting, 9:45 to 10:45. The Merchant Royal has been called the El Dorado of the seas, $1 billion in gold and silver, 35 miles from one of England's most popular tourist destinations, sitting in water shallow enough that modern technology should be able to find it. 385 years, multiple search expeditions, millions of dollars in AUV technology, and still nothing. But the technology is getting better every year. A eye-powered sonar can now distinguish between a cannon and a rock at 300 feet. Autonomous vehicles can scan for 72 hours straight without a human operator. And a team of Cornish fishermen who grew up on these waters is searching right now. The Merchant Royal is out there. Captain Limbrey's gold is still on the ocean floor. The only question is, who finds it first? CTA, 45 to 11 o'clock. If this story hooked you, subscribe and hit the bell. We cover the world's greatest underwater treasures every week. And if you missed it, watch our breakdown of deep-sea mining economics. The video that explains why finding treasure is easy compared to actually keeping it. Link in the description.